Welcome everybody to today's NIBA webinar. The title of today's session is Know and Manage Your Loads, Stress Management Strategies for Work and Home. Really excited to bring this topic to everyone today, given the current environment. So hopefully you enjoy, and please note the session will be recorded for future playback. Before we get started, just wanted to quickly promote our upcoming virtual expo, NIBA Connect. Hopefully everyone's heard about it thus far. We're going to have basically a business matchmaking event with attendees and exhibitors in 15-minute increments over the course of a week. So it's a really easy to use system. Wanted to try something new this year with our in-person convention canceled. So please go to NIBA.org, navigate to NIBA Connect, and find the attendee or exhibit button to register and learn more. A couple housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session will be on Zoom webinar, so all the attendees will be muted by default. We will have question and answer, so feel free to type your questions into the chat, into the question and answer box. We'll use that primarily for the questions, and we'll get to them throughout the course of the presentation. And the chat will be monitored as well, but that's more for communication amongst attendees. We may not get to questions in the chat, but we'll do our best to address all. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Sean and Vito at MA, who were gracious enough to sponsor today's webinar. Guys?
Thanks, Michael. Sean Godfrey with MA Lacing Technology, or MLT for short. We do conveyor belt fasteners, conveyor belt repair, etc. And we're just very, very happy to be able to bring this to the NIBA group. So, and then I'll introduce my coworker.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Vito Cota-Robles. I am the Director for Business Development with MA Lacing North America. And we are super excited to be here. Very grateful to Jude and to NIBA and to the Education Committee for really expanding the learning opportunities that are available to NIBA members, and especially for giving MLT an opportunity to connect members with our webinar presenter today, who is Jude Johnson. Jude Johnson is a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's been in the behavioral health field and the helping profession now for 20 years. He specializes in stress reduction techniques, and is an expert in an evidence-based practice, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques. Jude is also the owner of A Keen Mind, which is based in Charlotte, North Carolina. There he owns a private practice, but also offers meditation training and coaching and consultant work for companies throughout America. Jude is also the creator of a podcast called A Keen Mind. The A Keen Mind podcast has been around for a couple of years, and it's been consistently now for 2 years voted the top 25 mindfulness podcast in America. It's available on a variety of different podcast platforms. And we are, like I said, just super excited that Jude's agreed to be here and share some of his information and wisdom about mindfulness and stress reduction. So thanks a lot, Jude, NIBA, and welcome, Jude.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you all, and I am grateful to you, Sean and Vito, for sponsoring this talk, and for NIBA for having me here to speak to people about ways to reduce stress. And as Vito was saying, I've been in the mental health field, helping profession for quite a long time. And at one point in my career, I was actually feeling like I was at a loss of knowing whether or not I should actually be a therapist anymore. I was working at an alternative school with kids with emotional behavioral problems. And I was on the verge of like just leaving the profession altogether, maybe doing like self-serve frozen yogurt. That seemed pretty hot at the time, and thought maybe I could, develop my passion and come back to counseling maybe. But before I did anything too rash, I reached out to some friends of mine and had conversations. And one of my friends was an administrator at Duke in the hospital there. And she had taken a course called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, which is an 8-week meditation course. And I started reading the research on it and thought I should give it a try. So I took the course and then started teaching the kids in the school some of these basic practices. And to my surprise, kids that were extremely disturbed, it would curse me out in a heartbeat, started to regulate and started to be able to actually experience what it's like to relax and get along with their peers. And granted, I was in a classroom of kids that had such severe problems in an alternative school that they were also the outcasts of that school. And yet they began to find a greater sense of hope and peace and stability in their lives. And that made me a believer in the practice itself, but then it had a huge benefit in my own life. So we're going to talk about some practical ways. You might be thinking, meditation, how in the world is that going to help me? I don't do that. Or, mindfulness, what does that really mean? So we're going to dig into all of that. And we're going to look at what we're going to cover here today. So we're going to talk about what the impact of stress is, because it comes from all areas of life. And we're going to talk about, how it affects you at work and home. We're going to talk about how you can apply mindfulness in real life, in real time. There's a specific skill called STOP that we'll cover, and there'll be a PDF that will be provided to you via email that you can practice on your own. I'm going to talk to you about what meditation really is and the myths and misconceptions that people have about meditation. We're going to talk about the science and what it says about mindfulness and its benefits. And you'll actually have an opportunity to experience a guided meditation. So after that, Vito's going to kind of share some of the resources that will be available to you so that you can kind of take something with you, so that it's not just information, but it's things that you will be able to apply and access after this training is over. And then after we share the resources, we'll get to some questions and answers, as Michael had mentioned in the beginning. So let's begin talking about stress. Well, what is stress? Stress occurs when you feel like that you don't have the adequate resources to meet the demands that are before you, or when you feel like that you can meet it, but it requires so much effort and it becomes taxing on your body and your mind. And so some work-related stresses that you all might be dealing with is increased workload, maybe working longer hours in stressful conditions, feeling like that your job may not be secure with the way the economy is going, the uncertainty of how things are, lost revenue when a conveyor belt goes down. Stress can also impact worker safety, because when there is too much stress, it can lead to accidents and injuries. Stress can negatively impact our ability to focus and concentrate at the task at hand. In fact, when you think about the number one reason people get in accidents on the road, it's because of distracted driving. We're not focused at the task at hand. And when we do learn to focus and be attentive, then we're more safe and more productive. We're actually more mindful when we're attentive in this way. And we'll get into what that is. Now, another stressor is home expectations. When you're already dealing with a challenging job and uncertainty at work and unsafe conditions at times, you have to deal with what's going on at home as well. Repetitive tasks, that never-ending to-do list. There's always something else that gets added around the house for chores. And if you're also trying to take care of children during this pandemic, you know how challenging that can be. Now, you may have kids actually in school, depending on what part of the nation that you're in, or like my kids, they're here right now. So hopefully they don't come in and disturb me. They know that they're supposed to be focused on what they're supposed to be doing, but now we're trying to manage work and home and more responsibilities than we've ever really faced, because all the stress of this pandemic is also causing stress for our loved ones. And if our loved ones and our families are having stress, then we can, have more conflict potentially at home. Another big impact of the pandemic right now is social isolation and a decrease in being able to engage in some of the stress relieving activities that we love and enjoy. You know, like me, I can't go to a big concert right now. And if I can, I can't really be with all of those people. I have to be in my car separated from everyone else. You know, maybe you like to go shoot pool or go to sporting events. We can't do those things safely right now. Even religious activities and meeting your friends out at a restaurant or a bar for a drink seems to be like something of the past right now. So feeling isolated and alone can make us feel more fatigued and more stressed because it's not natural for us to be so separated from one another in these ways. In fact, there was a 90-year-long Harvard study that showed the number one key to happiness, the number one factor to happiness, is satisfying relationships. And so those aren't only with the people that we live with directly. And if you happen to be a person who lives alone, this is especially difficult. We also gain a lot of joy over connecting with people at work. We connect with people in the community, but now, you know, it's harder. There's like a layer in between us and other people. Another big stressor is uncertainty about the future. Not only does it cause stress, but it causes fear and anxiety when we don't have certainty about the future because our brains are wired to plan. And when we don't have enough information to make an accurate prediction of the future, we can get stuck in negative thoughts, which produce negative feelings, and that can go into a loop in an infinite number of scenarios that we can create for ourselves when things are difficult. So as you can see, stress comes from work, it comes from home, relationships, finances, parenting, physical health, the fear of illness in our own lives, and the fear of illness for our loved ones. But really, while our stressors come from all of these different areas, we just have one life. So we have to manage these things together at home and at work with simple skills that can help us manage more effectively. Now, if you're stressed out right now, you're not alone. 75 to 90% of doctor's office visits are stress related. And this statistic is pre-pandemic. You know, stress can impair your body's ability to fight off illness and can cause physical and psychological problems. So when we perceive something as being a threat, our bodies are designed to go into a fight-flight mode. If there's a bear or a home intruder, this is a real threat, right? But now we have other threats that our bodies respond in exactly the same way. Maybe getting stuck in traffic, forgetting something important, having that conveyor belt go down, feeling activated inside, your heart starts pumping, your blood pressure goes up. And actually the blood is diverted from your gut to your arms and legs so that you can fight or run away, even if your life isn't in danger. And in fact, your frontal cortex, this part of your brain right here, is responsible for thinking and rationally looking at things. But under stress, almost all the blood flow, 80% of it, is shunted away from your frontal lobe. So when you're stressed, sometimes you really can't think clearly. But being able to regulate that system and calm back down can help you see things more clearly. Maybe you've heard that old saying before that, you know, you can't see the forest because of the trees. Those trees might represent stressors in your life that you become fixated on, and then you can't see the possible solutions of what's going on. It's like we get tunnel vision. So more people are struggling with stress now than ever before. And according to a group of researchers from UNC Chapel Hill and Harvard, 55% of Americans say that they are more stressed out now than they were before the pandemic. You know, the biggest stressor that people report post-pandemic was that they're fearful for a loved one or a friend who could be a vulnerable population right? 66% of people report to be moderately or extremely stressed about this. And I have to be honest and say it's a stressor for me too. My parents are in their mid-70s and they're vulnerable populations. We don't connect with each other in the same ways out of wanting to be safe for them. So we're worried about our safety, and that's the number one thing that we have to take care of so that we can enjoy everything else. Now, 57% said that they were stressed about their health. 58% are frustrated about not being able to enjoy the usual activities that we love to do. 56% were worried about society completely breaking down because of what's going on. People have concern about their personal finances, 53%, and 53% of us feel bored, right? I mean, just not being able to engage in the same kind of activities that we've done before can bring about these kinds of feelings of, what do I do now? So high levels of stress, it can lead to mental illness like depression and anxiety. Stress can cause us to ruminate or think again and again about our problems instead of taking action. A national emergency hotline for people in emotional distress reported more than 1,000% increase in April of 2020 when compared to last year. That people are having so much more difficulty managing their stress, their anxiety. And if you're having problems with stress, anxiety, or feeling low more often than you have ever in your life, you would not be alone. 1 in 5 Americans report a mental illness. 19% of Americans have a mental illness of some kind. If you broke your arm, you would have no problem at all going to the emergency room and saying, hey, I need to get a splint on this thing. But if you're experiencing sadness or you're feeling hopeless at times, you might be a lot less likely to tell somebody because you think that you're not being man enough or woman enough, or that you're not taking charge of your life because you were told that you should pull yourself up. But when you have an injury that is mental, it's invisible to other people, which is why it's so important for us to really talk about it. I mean, there's some prominent figures out there that have helped to destigmatize mental illness, like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. You may have heard of him. He has been open about his battle with depression. You know, Terry Bradshaw, Michael Phelps, and so many other people have come out and said, hey, here's what I'm struggling with. And they're sharing that message in hopes that it will give other people permission to do the same thing. Now, in late June of 2020, the Centers for Disease Control reported that 40% of Americans were struggling with mental health or substance abuse. So that's the other thing that people go to during stress is they increase their use of alcohol and or drugs. And alcohol sales in stores were up 54% in March compared to March of last year. You know, increased stress and mental illness may lead to alcohol and drug abuse that creates temporary relief. Temporary relief feels good, but if you keep doing it, then it can create a habit that can cause bigger problems for yourself. Stress can also lead to unhealthy habits, becoming sedentary, an excessive amount of screen time, you know, becoming addicted to screens. And really, I mean, I think most everyone now who has a smartphone, which almost everyone does, is addicted to it on some level. You know, do you find yourself checking it first thing in the morning, checking your email, social media feeds, and does it make you happier? Most of the time, it makes people feel more anxious and more depressed to be on these kinds of sites first thing in the morning. We don't even pay attention sometimes to what's going on with us. And when we're trying to deal with stress, it's understandable that we're just trying to soothe what's happening. But not only can stress take a toll on us personally for our health and well-being, it can shut down our immune system, and it can cause us to lose money at work. It can have an effect on the bottom line. Job stress costs over $300 billion annually in absenteeism, tardies, and poor performance. 40% of job turnover is due to stress. Depression is a common side effect of stress, and it's the #1 predictor of being absent at work and having poor performance. And in fact, depression is the biggest cause of disability. So let's look a little bit about how the mind works and what neuroscience says about the mind. Now, the average human being has about 60,000 thoughts every single day. And most people's thoughts today look strikingly familiar to yesterday's thoughts. We repeat the same ways of thinking and behaving over and over and over again, which creates automatic responses for us. Sometimes we're not even aware of why we feel the way we do. Maybe you're not even aware sometimes of what's running through your mind, because we spend so much time pushing those things away to take care of responsibilities at work and home. And where's the time for working with all the thoughts that might be running through your mind? Now, we have trouble focusing and paying attention, and stress, as I mentioned earlier, can get in the way of that. In one study, researchers found that we're only paying attention to the task at hand about 47% of the time. We're becoming more distracted because our attention is pulled in more directions. Now, the good news is that the neurons that fire together wire together, and they create a pathway in the brain. You have about 86 billion neurons in your brain, and each one of those neurons can have up to 10,000 connections. You ultimately have a supercomputer that can be molded and adapted. We used to believe that the brain was hardwired, that I'm just born this way, this is the way I am. And so many people that I see actually think that, well, this is just who I am. I can't change. This is just the way I think. And the truth is that it is difficult to begin to perceive and think and behave differently. But a habit can be created, a new one, in as little as 21 days. It's hard to start, but one of the keys is to start with low expectations, but to be consistent with the new habit that you're doing. So that if you say, oh, I need to exercise 5 days a week, you might want to start with 1 or 2 days a week as your goal, and allow more days of the week to just be gravy on top, so that you don't become so critical and negative towards yourself. The key to being mentally fit is paying closer attention to what's happening in the present moment. Attention is one of the components of being mindful, and what we spend our time paying attention to ends up becoming how our brains are wired. Whatever you practice becomes stronger. You may think, well, gee whiz, I've been practicing the same way of being for so long. How is that really going to change? We don't lose old habits, but we can create new ones. And once those new ones are created and they become familiar enough, they too can become an automatic way of being to us. And we just use those other pathways less frequently. So let's talk a little bit about what mindfulness actually is. So mindfulness is our ability to be fully present and aware of where we are, what we're doing, and not be overwhelmed by all of our thoughts, feelings, and circumstances. It's breaking free of that automatic pilot that I was talking about, like not knowing how you're really thinking, how you're really feeling, and to not be a passive participant in your life anymore. I've been in the shower and not really been in the shower. I've been in the car and not really been in the car driving. I've been in conversations and not really been there. And what I mean by that is that my attention was split. I was somewhere other than that moment. My mind was somewhere else. Mindfulness is about inviting yourself to be present in the here and now without judging your experience as being good or bad, liking it or disliking it. Now, it's normal for us to judge our experiences. That's what we do. We categorize things as good and bad, liking them, disliking them. Mindfulness is practicing being an observer, trying to notice the facts of the situation rather than getting lost in the story of your own thoughts. Now, remember, I said about 60,000 thoughts every single day. And so we can get lost in scenarios in our mind and believe that what we are thinking is actually the reality of our life, when in fact, they are just thoughts. I want you to think for a moment that your thoughts and your feelings are like clouds or weather patterns in the sky, constantly coming and going, just like your thoughts and feelings are constantly coming and going. With mindfulness, we're sitting back, looking up at the sky and watching the clouds come and go. Maybe some of them stick around for a while. Maybe some of them are very familiar, but eventually, if we keep watching, they go. We realize through mindfulness that things change constantly and that we don't have to believe everything that we think. And this ability to be mindful is about being present, non-judgmental, but it's also about you being some level of friendly to yourself. What are some of the negative things that you might say to yourself if you don't perform well, if something goes wrong in your life? That little committee in your head that likes to say lots of negative things to you, and then notice how you feel when you talk to yourself that way. If you talk to your friends that way, you might not have very many friends. Wouldn't it be nice if you could begin a dialogue with yourself that was a little bit more friendly? Now, people are scared of this on some level because they think if they're more friendly to themselves, that they will just let themselves off the hook, that they need to be harder. Now, this is not about being passive in your life or just making excuses for anything that you might do. It's about being honest and seeing things clearly. But it's also not about being harsh and critical, because we know that being harsh and critical only makes us feel ashamed and bad about ourselves. And if you feel ashamed or you feel bad about yourself, your performance is not going to do very well. We know in sports, when people get into their heads about a bad play, they let that bad play come right in to the next play instead of being present for the next play. So how do you apply mindfulness that I'm sitting here talking about? And, first is that we have to pause. We have to stop and interrupt that train of thoughts that's coursing through the brain and notice, where was my attention at? Where is my attention right now, even in this moment, so that I can be aware of what's happening? It may seem simple, but a lot of times we're just on the go, 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 instead of pausing to notice what's here. And then next, we're going to take some deep conscious breaths, deeply in, and let the breath out twice as long as when you inhaled, because letting the breath out more slowly lowers your heart rate, it lowers your blood pressure, and actually sends a message to the part of your brain that alerts the stress response that you're actually not in danger, even though we're becoming reactive to many things that are not actual threats. And the next step is to begin to observe what's going on in the mind and body. What's happening? Can we observe those thoughts and feelings like clouds and weather patterns? Can we withhold our judgment for a little while and just witness what's happening rather than trying to fix or solve every single thing that is going on in the mind and the body? What would it be like if you allowed the answers to come to you rather than strive to get all of them? And, sometimes you've probably noticed that you have great ideas when you're not looking for them. But if you're really stressed about something and you're trying to figure it out, it may be really elusive to you finding the answer to the problem. It can really help just to pause, breathe, and observe mindfully what's going on inside. I mean, if you talk to any IT guy, if you're having a computer problem, the first thing that they say is shut it down, turn it off, turn it back on. Now, we can't really shut down our minds unless we're dead. They keep processing whether we're asleep or awake, but sometimes we need to give them a break from actively problem solving and to just be a witness to our own experience. And the last step is just to be present in the moment with whatever the next task is at hand, so that if you practice the skill of stopping, breathing, and observing, then you want to go about your life with presence, being mindful, being attentive to the task at hand, so that you can live a happier, safer life, so that you can be more present to, enjoy your loved ones, enjoy the people around you, because when you're not present, you're probably not happy. You're consumed with competing things in your mind. And when you're present, you can actually enjoy this moment. So how can we do that? Now, this stop skill that I've just gone over is really a mini meditation, and you can practice this in just 30 seconds. So in the PDF that I'll be sending out, practice this 5 or 6 times a day for 30 seconds. That is about 3 minutes of your life, pausing, breathing, and observing your own inner experience. Doesn't really require anything other than you to pause, which can be difficult at first if you're not used to pausing. But if you really take care of this present moment, you may find that your next moment is much different. So meditation. A lot of people wonder, like, what exactly is meditation? You know, my kids like to make fun of me with all kinds of different poses, and they put their hands in different areas, and they like to make sounds about what a meditator is supposed to be doing. But it's really just a formal mindfulness practice where we're directing our attention towards an object of awareness. So I want you just to consider for a moment that, just pay attention to your breath. Just feel it come in, feel your breath come out. So if you could feel your breath and you were aware of that, then you just completed a successful meditation, even if your attention went off for a second. Because it's not uncommon for our attention to move away from the object that we're intending to focus on. So breath and body are the two most common things to pay attention to. So if you're, say, doing a 5-minute meditation where all you're doing is watching your breath flow in and out, you're not going to stop other things from entering your awareness. And in fact, you're not trying to. Meditation is more about giving yourself permission to just be instead of trying to get somewhere or accomplish something. Now, this flies in the face of just about every single thing that we do, right? We're always striving to do better and to do more. And there's nothing wrong with striving to do better and do more. But if you're always in that mode, then you might lose a sense of creativity and understanding about a different way of approaching something. You know, sometimes we move so fast that we miss some of the very important things that we need to realize and pay attention to in the moment. Slowing down can let us see those things more clearly. So let's talk about some of the myths behind meditation. You know, and I kind of already alluded to this first one, is that you need to clear your mind. Yeah, well, good luck with that. With the 60,000 thoughts that are coursing through your mind most every single day, clearing your mind is probably just going to give you a big headache and make you feel like a failure. Instead, what we're going to do is stay with the object of awareness, say the breath, or guided meditations are very helpful for beginners. And then we're going to notice what the mind does. And we're going to come back to the object of awareness a million billion times. And every single time we come back to that object, you're doing a push-up, a sit-up, a bicep curl for your mind. You are rewiring your mind by coming back to the present moment again and again. Now, I tried meditation. That is way too difficult for me. I can't meditate. And what I would say to them is that, listen, meditation is simple as it could possibly be, and it's actually easy. It just may be hard if you're going to sit down and try to do it for 45 minutes when you've never done it before. Anyone could meditate for 10 seconds, 5 seconds, just be aware of your breath flowing in and out. Maybe you need to build upon that. Maybe you're not comfortable sitting there with your own tedious thoughts. I certainly wasn't in the beginning. It was a little bit difficult. I was like, oh my gosh, what's supposed to be happening here? And then all kinds of things might run through your mind, like, shouldn't I be doing something better than just sitting here? Gosh, you know, I have other things to do. I'm a busy person. But pausing in this way can bring a new way of being in your everyday life so that you can maybe enjoy in the act of being productive as well, because then you can bring mindfulness into the way you're living. And really, that's the intention. It's not that you should just meditate and then feel better, and then that's great. It's, I meditate so that I can pay closer attention to every aspect of my life and enjoy it more fully. So people think it takes years of practice in order to benefit. There's research that shows just a 10-minute meditation could be beneficial to your mental well-being. You know, most of the research is based on an 8-week course mentioned already, mindfulness-based stress reduction, that can have huge effects. So it doesn't take that long. People think meditation is about escaping all their problems, right? Pushing everything away. And really, it's about tuning in to what is present in your life. People will tell me, you know what, I don't have enough time to meditate. I'm too busy. I have too many responsibilities. And that could be actually somewhat true for your situation. If you have very small children and you're working more than one profession and you're working lots and lots of hours, you may not have much time. But here's a hack. Try meditation at bedtime, right before you fall asleep. If you fall asleep during part of the meditation, so what? You know, sleep is a good thing. It's going to help you feel more energy and clarity the next day. Some of you may be concerned about meditation as it relates to your own religious beliefs. So, this is a myth and it's not a myth, because meditation can be found in every major religion. However, the style and method that is taught through mindfulness-based stress reduction and what I teach has no bearing on your religious beliefs. Many people that I do work with that have religious beliefs often apply these techniques to their own religious beliefs, and those without them just find them beneficial. Now, let's look at the research, right? This is a graph that shows the number of research studies that have been done from 1980 to 2019. And you can see, exponential growth in research all the way up in to 2019. And, meditation has been around for thousands of years. And, it's only in the last 40 years that we see that science is validating the benefits. We have functional MRIs, advanced scientific methods that we can actually see how much benefit is happening with meditation. We're seeing schools, universities, militaries, prisons, many companies are incorporating mindfulness into their everyday process because of how beneficial it is in reducing stress and improving well-being. The creator of mindfulness-based stress reduction is Jon Kabat-Zinn. You may or may not have heard of him, but he was a microbiologist from MIT whose advisor and family told him he was crazy to start such a thing. There's no way to validate this stuff. And here we are all these years later, and there are over 750 locations all over the world where you can learn mindfulness-based stress reduction. And here's a glance at some of the companies who practice mindfulness and implement this into their organizations. See some of those large companies. Now, interestingly enough, Aetna is a company whose CEO had a horrible skiing accident, almost died, became suicidal. He found the practice of meditation, and now if you work for them, you can meditate and all kinds of wellness benefits there. But it's very, very interesting to see, when you have a personal experience, it really can create a larger impact. So let's look at some studies. It's okay if you're skeptical at this point about what meditation can do, or you're on the fence about this whole thing. But the first study was really one of the landmark studies that interested me. So 2011, Harvard and UMass Medical found that meditation produced gray matter changes in the brain associated with learning, memory, and emotion regulation. So specifically, they found that neurons were growing in your hippocampus. Now, your hippocampus is responsible for emotion regulation. And people who deal with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, they have atrophy in that part of the brain. So do people with major depression. That's one of the reasons as a mental health professional, I thought, well, meditation seems like such a wonderful thing. Instead of me trying to tell everybody maybe how they should think, maybe their mind and their body can help heal. It's not to say that you may not need counseling to talk or even medication, but it's amazing what meditation can do. It's considered a mind-body medicine. The next study is done by Richard Davidson. He's a renowned neuroscientist who found that the 8-week course in BSR increased antibodies after taking the flu vaccine for people who practiced. And he did a control and a test group. So the control group just got the flu vaccine and they didn't notice any difference in their antibodies, but the people who meditated did. And lastly, there was a 2014 study that showed that meditation increases telomere length. So telomeres are these little end caps on your DNA, and by the time you reach around 40, they start to shorten until death. So meditation's been shown to help with longevity. Some other benefits that I think are important to mention, of course, that it increases your ability to manage stress. It can reduce absenteeism, increase focus, help you be a safe and mindful employee. It can improve your concentration, memory, creativity, and your learning ability. There was actually a study that was done by people who took the graduate record exam to get into graduate school. It's much like the SAT, but on steroids. And the people who meditated versus the people who ate better food prescribed by nutritionists scored higher, significantly higher. It can improve your sleep quality, which is why I recommend you may consider trying it at bedtime. Reduce your emotional and physical pain. They've shown that meditation can produce what's called an analgesic effect, which is the same thing that happens when you take a pain relieving medication like hydrocodone, acetaminophen, and overall it can improve your quality of life. And this next slide is just going to kind of show you some of the conditions that mindfulness meditation has been shown to be helpful with. And really the list is continuing to go on here, that we're seeing all kinds of benefits. High blood pressure is something that some people have come and seen me for because they want to reduce it without the use of medication. A colleague of mine, Dr. Jonathan Fisher, who's a cardiologist, prescribes meditation to his patients because he knows that if they can reduce their stress, they're much less likely to have another heart attack. Okay, so with all of this in mind, perhaps we can participate in a brief guided meditation. So, there are no right or wrong experiences for you to have during this process. I'm simply going to guide you through some ways of paying attention. Everything I say is merely a suggestion. However, you probably will find it helpful the more attentive and focused you can be to the instructions that I'm giving. It's okay if your mind wanders away. Just invite yourself to come back again and again. And then following this, we'll go over the resources and have some Q&A so that you can let us know what your experience was like. So to begin, just take a position that is comfortable. You don't have to sit especially straight up. Just make yourself comfortable. You might lean back in your chair. You may wish to close your eyes. Some people may prefer to leave their eyes open. If you keep them open, just gaze in one spot and keep your attention there. Just notice your body. Notice where it's making contact with the surface beneath you. Notice the gravity that's acting on your body right now, holding you here. You may see if you can soften and relax your body to any degree possible without forcing. Softening the face, shoulders, hands. I want to invite you to begin to take some deeper breaths. And if you can breathe through your nose, breathe in deeply through the nose and then breathe out through the mouth. And as you breathe in, just say to yourself, soft. As you breathe out, just say to yourself, belly. Breathing in the word soft, breathing out the word belly. And as you breathe out, see if you can soften your belly to any degree possible on that out breath. Breathe into a soft and relaxed belly. And as you breathe out, soften even more, letting go of any unnecessary tightness or tension that you may be holding. Continuing to breathe in this fashion if you're able, or if it feels right for you just to breathe naturally through your nose, that's fine. Or if you can't, just breathe through your mouth. Just be present with breathing in deeply through the nose and out through the mouth. On that in-breath, watching the body expand and fill with oxygen. And on the out-breath, just watching the body let go, let be. Taking a few more deep breaths in this fashion, deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth, softening the belly, softening the body as you breathe out. And then just allowing your breath to return to a natural rhythm and flow. Just noticing the soft touch of the breath as you breathe in and out. See if you can be curious about your own experience. Just noticing the breath, noticing thoughts come and go, feelings come and go, remembering that there's nothing in particular that you need to be doing. We're just watching the breath flow in and out. Notice the coolness as you breathe in. Noticing the warmth as you breathe out. Notice the pauses as you breathe in out, once at the top of the in-breath, and again the pause at the bottom of the out-breath as you're present. Just sitting here watching the breath flow in and out, and seeing if you can give yourself permission just to be here, to let go of fixing, doing, trying to solve anything. Just giving yourself permission to really be in this moment. There's nothing to solve that's already happened. There's nothing you can do about the future right now. Just see if you can be present with breathing. We'll move our awareness now from the breath to the oval of your face. Just sense and feel what you can here. See if you can allow the face to be soft and at ease. Perhaps unclenching the jaw and allowing the muscles here to relax. Notice the muscles of your jaw. Letting them be. Even if tightness or tension remains, just let it float in your awareness. There's nothing to do about it. Bring awareness to your eyes and the muscles around the eyes. Often tasked with so much every single day. Just giving them a chance to rest, to be. And breath by breath, drawing awareness down into the space of your shoulders. Just see if you can sense and feel the shoulders from the inside out, noticing warmth, coolness, tingling, non-feeling. Perhaps allow the shoulders to drop away from the ears just a bit, as this is a place where tension and stress is often held in the body. You might even imagine that your shoulders are like blocks of ice, slowly melting to water as they become more fluid and flexible. You may envision your shoulders turning from water to gas, so they're becoming even lighter. And allowing any tension that remains just to float in awareness with nothing to do about it. breath by breath, you're invited to move awareness all the way down into your hands. See if you can sense and feel your hands from the inside out, noticing warmth, coolness, tingling, vibration. Seeing if you can put the mind in your hands. And then allowing your awareness to spread from the hands throughout your entire body so that you're aware from the top of your head all the way down to the bottoms of your feet, noticing what you can. Letting the body and mind be just as it is. You're invited to gently move awareness back to the breath, just feeling this soft touch flowing in and out. Let's take a few more breaths from this space right here. When you're ready, you can give yourself the gift of coming out of the meditation softly and gently, allowing the eyes to open, the body to move. And just to take a moment to notice the quality of your attention and focus, how your body feels in this moment in comparison to when we first began. Notice what's different. So I hope you all found that meditation helpful. Each time you do this practice, it's different. Some people's minds really speed up a lot when they try to meditate, or they might feel uncomfortable at first doing this. Some people may have felt very relaxed. So whatever your experience was okay. And we'll get to some questions here if you have them. But I want to turn it over now to Vito so he can share our resources. Let's see.
Vito, sorry, I think you're muted. There you go.
So while you guys are transitioning from that meditation, I'm going to go ahead and type some links into some resources into the question and answers. So give me a minute.
While we do that, I have a question, Jude. Should meditation habits be at the same time each day or more as needed?
It's best if you can pick the same time of day. I find it's easier to develop a habit that way. So I meditate every morning and generally every evening before bed. But I also have to do that to keep up with being a meditation teacher. So for those of us who are not having to keep up with that kind of practice, even just a few minutes at a specific time of day, even if it needs to be on your lunch break, can be a wonderful addition to taking care of yourself and developing this new habit.
Awesome. I have one more if we have a minute. Can meditation mindfulness be used to focus my brain on one specific problem, work or personal?
Yes, I believe it can. There are specific skills in meditation that are designed to help you dive deeper into one specific issue and to explore what's going on emotionally and cognitively. Often, that it's called a rain meditation that can help you do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
So I had typed some resources into both question and answer and also into the chat box for Zoom there. But I thought it was really important for us to, conclude our webinar with just some resources. Again, meditation and mindfulness is considered an evidence-based practice. Some people have just very evolved feelings of stress and anxiety, and just know that there's other resources that are available to you. There's tons of stuff on the internet, and it's just impossible to endorse just one. And so what I've done here on the left side, you have treatment locators for both behavioral health and substance use, as well as just a national helpline. And those web links will connect you to SAMHSA, which is a Department of the Health and Human Services here in the US. And it stands for Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration. And it's wildly reliable. Just go onto those sites and it'll tell you about the different types of treatments that are available and also the providers that are available in your community. Just this past Monday, a bipartisan bill was signed into law, designating 988 as the mental health emergency line. And that 98888 is it's implemented now. It actually connects to that prevention lifeline number. It's also a number that's dedicated for veterans that are experiencing some type of mental health crisis. 988 is working now. It's not formally going to be fully implemented until 2022, but again, they just signed it into law on Monday, and it's a resource that's available for folks if things are especially grim. And then those the links that I gave you in the chat box and the question and answer are for the A Keen Mind podcast. And so both Michael and Jude said that we're going to go ahead and email out a PDF list of resources to all of the attendees of today's webinar. But I do really encourage you guys to go to Jude's A Keen Mind website. There you actually have a trial podcast, trial code that's available for Simple Habit, which is an application that is available both web-based and also on your phone. And the free trial code that Jude has provided for everybody is for the web-based version. And Simple Habit has, over 1,000 guided meditation recordings that are available for you folks to listen to for free for a month. So that's an extraordinary resource that's available to you guys. And like I said, everybody can just stay tuned for an email from Michael that is just further resources that you guys are able to use. Did we answer everybody's questions? Does anybody have any more questions that they want to post in question and answer, or any comments?
I think that's the questions that I saw, but definitely appreciate today's presentation. A lot of useful information, and in addition to sending a follow-up to our attendees, we'll also post some of these resources to our learning library, where you can watch this on demand as well.
Michael? Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jude.
Thanks, Jude.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you all so much for hosting this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and we appreciate you guys. Thank you to Monet and Jude. Really appreciate this this resource for our members, and I'm sure it'll be useful moving forward as well.
Michael.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.